We are Southeastern 16 as we get ready for a big weekend of SEC football. One of those big games I'm excited to see. Arkansas on the road at Auburn. They'll be playing in Jordan-Hare Stadium coming up Saturday afternoon. Tye Richardson with ESPN Arkansas joining us now to talk some Hogs football. Tye, as always, appreciate you coming on with us.
Of course, Chase. I think last time we talked, you guys were Southeastern 14 prior to
Yes.
right before the things got changed with Texas and Oklahoma. I know that was probably just a bunch of issues for Chris. He had to go through, change this, change that. But hey, good to be on. Good to talk some Hogs and Tigers heading in this weekend, man.
Yeah, I want to get to the game in a second, but just look at big picture Arkansas right now. I mean, Oklahoma State was a game where, I was thinking of all this content in the first half. I was going to be talking about Arkansas winning a game. They lost that one. They've won the games they should. They struggled a bit in the first half with UAB. Just how could you sum up the first few games of the season for the Razorbacks?
It's been up and down. I mean, they scored 10 touchdowns and 10 drives against UAPB. They had every reason to win that Oklahoma State game, still came away with a loss. And then they looked lackluster against UAB. So you really got the highs, the lows, and then the up-down game in Stillwater, which, of course, you wanted up going down. But it's been an interesting 3 games thus far. Defense looked bad last week, as did the offense. I expect them to be a lot better. I have been a little surprised at how good the offense has looked at times because that was not the case at all last year. So curious. I mean, this is, as Xavier Sori, Arkansas linebacker, said this week, it's grown man football time. It's SEC football. It's one thing to do it against 2 non-cons, an FCS opponent in that one of those teams, and then Oklahoma State. It's another thing to do it against the likes of Auburn, even though this is not a 2010 or 2013 Auburn team. It's still a team that has every weapon to be able to just put a beat down on you, as they did last year. It was 48-10 in Fayetteville.
In that Oklahoma State game, again in the first half, Arkansas moving the ball great. You mentioned the 10 drives, 10 scores in the Pine Bluff game. Taylon Green is able to move the ball well some, and I know last week against UAB they put a little more pressure on him. And but your thoughts on Taylon Green, just as you've watched him in the first few games?
He's special at times, and then he looks like a Mountain West quarterback at times with some of the errors he's had. 11 for 26, I believe, last game, 42%. Had a misfire or 2 in the Oklahoma State game, but just can make a play. He's athletic, rolls out. Even when the play looks dead, he'll make something out of it. Seems to be a very, very good leader for this football team. Players have flocked to him since he stepped on campus. But now it's go time. He was nervous last week, it looked like, in Fayetteville. See how nervous he is at Auburn. High on Taylon Green, but want to see what he does in conference play before I make a definitive statement really about what he is for Arkansas football this year.
Jaquindon Jackson has been a nice piece of the offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been awesome. Number 1 leader in touchdowns in the Southeastern Conference. He's either first or second in rushing as well. Comes up from Utah, started his career at Texas as a dual threat quarterback, transfers to Utah, shifts to running back, was good there. And while he's been a little dinged up in 3 games, when he's on the field, he is a force, breaking tackles left and right, jump cuts here and there. Chase, he has been a big pickup for this Arkansas Razorback football team in the transfer portal.
How have you seen, and you mentioned the offense has been up and down, but with Bobby Petrino leading the offense, I mean, that's when Arkansas was good, when he was the head coach, and now he's back leading the offense. Like, what differences are maybe from last year to this year as far as the offense goes with him leading it?
The biggest thing is they can run the football, and they could not do that at all last year. They ranked 87th last year. Most categories this year, they're within the top 10 or top 15. I realize in SEC play that's going to go up drastically the wrong way, but it's still marked improvement where they were 3 games last year versus this year. When you can run the football in the Southeastern Conference, you have a chance to win. Now, Taylor's got to make some throws. He's got to make some better reads. He's got to hit guys when they're open. But that's the strongest selling point for this football team thus far, is they have looked powerful at times running the football. And outside of the Florida game last year, you couldn't say that about Arkansas in 2023.
Defensively, I know we've talked about the offense. Defensively, what do you like about Arkansas?
I like that Travis Williams is the defensive coordinator, because in year one, they didn't let Jackson Dart do much. You look at that LSU game, they at least held the Heisman Trophy winner down for a half. Jalen Milroe maybe had his worst game of the season outside of one of the initial ones against Arkansas. So there were some games last year they looked pretty good. I think for me, it's what they've done on their rush defense. Pass rushing has not been good. They've only got 5 sacks on the year, Chase. Then you look at some of their other statistics, not great against the pass. But I just like, if you can stop the run, you give yourself a chance against a redshirt freshman quarterback that's never seen SEC corners or linebackers or SEC defensive line. They've got to stop Jarquez Hunter on Saturday, because if they don't, they're going to wind up with another loss come about 6:30 in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Yeah, it's a big one in Auburn Saturday. I feel like for both teams, Auburn is trying to prove a point with Hank Brown now as their starting quarterback. Arkansas trying to start SEC playoff on the right foot. What intrigues you most about this matchup, first SEC game for the Razorbacks?
I think it's just which Taylor Green shows up. We saw he was pretty solid against UAPB. Then he upped it against Oklahoma State. Again, he missed some plays, missed some throws, probably missed some reads and some calling out blocking assignments. Looked bad against UAB. Which Taylor Green shows up? And then on the flip side, which defense shows up? The defense that for 50 minutes didn't allow a touchdown against Oklahoma State offensively. Does that defense show up? Because if that defense shows up, you're going to win the football game on Saturday. Auburn won't have enough defensively to slow down that offense. But those are just those two things, Chase, are what I'm keeping an eye on. You never know in the SEC, particularly the first game for each squad this season.
Do you feel that Arkansas is going to really try to attack the ground like hard in this game? Because I feel like you look back at Auburn last week, they had trouble with the New Mexico's dual threat guy. They had trouble stopping him at times. Do you feel like Arkansas is going to go heavy rush attack?
They're going to try. I don't know if they're going to be able to, because it just depends on what Durkin decides to do. I'm going to guess that he's going to throw a bunch of different things at Bobby Petrino, but Petrino's been around the block. If they can block it up, people just assume that if you blitz, you can't run. That's not the case. Like if teams blitz and you block it up right, there's no one within 10 or 15 yards till you get to that safety. So it just varies on how things go. Arkansas's got to have success. Here's a wild stat, Chase. You can look this up. They're the number 1 team in the country in third down efficiency on offense. Not in the SEC, not in some weird obscure stat. The number 1 team in the country. Last week, they looked terrible offensively. They're like 7 for 12 on third down. So this is a team, for whatever reason, when they get in a crunch or an issue or they're backed up, they've had ample success completing and converting third downs. That's an area you hope to see continue for the Arkansas Razorbacks if you're a Hog fan this Saturday.
Yeah, and looking kind of big picture again at Arkansas, and we talked in the preseason previewing the season, and you said it would be good for them to get a bowl game, good in Sam Pittman's, if he wants to hang around it, to make a bowl game. Do you feel like this is a team, barring them finding consistency, that could get to 6 wins, get a bowl game?
I think for Arkansas, for example, I have them losing this game. I got them losing next week at A&M. Then I have them ripping off 3 state, Tennessee, LSU, and Mississippi State, then losing every game with the exception of Louisiana Tech. Now, that's subject to change based on what happens this weekend, obviously. Fernando Carmona Jr., their new left tackle from San Jose State, who, by the way, sounded like he was down between Arkansas and Auburn before choosing Arkansas, talked about momentum. You could have gotten it in week 2. I mean, you win that Oklahoma State game, the season opens wide. And that's what we talked about all offseason. They lost, and now your back's up against the wall in your first SEC game. So, yeah, they could gain momentum like Carmona Jr. was saying, but you got to win this game. This place hasn't been kind. It was kind of Arkansas 2 years ago, but more often than not, and this isn't just an Arkansas thing. I mean, you go into Jordan-Hare Stadium, i.e. Alabama and Georgia, their first year in taking on Hugh Freeze last year. It's just not an easy place to play. Crazy things happen. It's one of the craziest venues in college football. And Jason, in my opinion, it's one of the most underrated venues to watch a college football game during an electric atmosphere.
Yeah, it really is. And you mentioned this stretch here at Auburn, then A&M the following week, then Tennessee before the bye week. That's a tough 3-game SEC stretch.
Oh, yeah, it's not easy when you look at what Arkansas has, especially at home. Chase, they have LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, and Tennessee. Not in that order, but those are their 4 opponents. There's not a checkoff win. No Vanderbilt, no South Carolina, no Kentucky. Like, you don't have like those lesser outside of Mississippi State. That's the only one. And you go on the road. So you never know what happens on the road. I'm chalking it up to a win. I hopefully am going to be in Starkville that game, as I'm going to be in Auburn this weekend. Just, it's going to be fun. You want to set yourself up. I've been saying it all offseason. Set yourself up for when Tennessee comes back in town. You can either be 3-2 or 4-1. Like, you don't have to win both these next 2 games against Auburn and A&M. But if you do, you're going to have 75,000 in Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium in a probably night game against Tennessee, your first conference game of the season in October. Which, think about this, Chase, I don't even know. They'll play in 5 different venues to open the season. Little Rock, Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater, Fayetteville, Jordan-Hare Stadium, Jerry World. 5 different venues to start off the season. Don't know how many college football programs could say that, not just this year, but ever. So if you skate by and you're 3-2 or 4-1, you set yourself up for the back end in Fayetteville.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very interesting stat there. I didn't realize that. You're on the radio there in Arkansas, so I know you probably have a kind of a pulse on what the fan base thinks. How are the fans feeling if a few games into the season now?
I think they feel like they can win this game. There's not a lot of people that are just flamboyant and bombastic. Yeah, we're going to go win this game. But I think we can go win this game. I think the issue was, and it will continue to be as long as Arkansas struggles, is these one-score losses. There are losses like Auburn and Missouri last year where they get rocked by 30-something, 40-something. But then there's 5 one-score losses last year. In 3 games, you've already had 1 one-score loss. That's very disheartening if you're an Arkansas fan to see the same thing in a different way to get there to the end result, but the end is the same. So I think you're hoping not to get hurt, Chase. And that's the life of an Arkansas fan, brother.
Well, Ty, always great talking with you. Should be fun Saturday. Appreciate you coming on and previewing the game with us.
Absolutely, man. Excited for what happens in that crazy stadium. We'll see who's smiling, Tigers or Hog fans, about 6:30 or so.
That is coming up Saturday. We are Southeastern 16. We have you covered with all things SEC football.